Okay, why does cabbage get the short end of the stick? It's tucked in a coleslaw, it's a garnish on tacos, or it's taking up space in a crisper drawer. Today, we're changing all of that. We're making miso garlic melting cabbage. It's savory, it's creamy, and bursting with umami goodness. This recipe has fine dining flavor and costs less than your favorite fast food. Let's get into what we're gonna need. 1 medium green cabbage, garlic, shallots, plant butter, olive oil, white miso paste, vegetable broth, raw cashews, plant Parmesan cheese, chili oil, fresh parsley, and some seasonings. We're starting with our prep, beginning with our cabbage. This is easy enough. We're going to cut our cabbage into quarters so they actually stay together during the searing and baking process. I like to start with the stem facing upward. This way, I could tell I'm cutting down directly in the center. Simply cut those halves into half and boom, you're done. Now, big recommendation here. Do not go any larger than a medium-sized cabbage. Some cabbages they can get there. And my mom, she would feed our entire family off of just half of one of those bad boys. I mean, you can just... Anyway, hold on a second. I'm losing my train of thought. All right, when we cook this, we want it to get tender at a decent pace. So like the cabbage I started with was actually a big boy. So I had to shave it. If I would have stuck with that one, it would have took over an hour to get it cooked properly. Therefore, good rule of thumb, keep it medium, keep it manageable. With your cabbage quartered, set it aside and move on to your garlic. I went with just about 6 cloves here because you can see the cloves are pretty huge, but normal size cloves, I would say about 8 is a really good goal. We're gonna mince this up nice and fine so it melts right into our sauce. Next up is our shallots. We're gonna dice these up pretty small too. We want them present in our sauce, but not noticeable. Just simply leaving all that sweet and aromatic flavor behind. And lastly, we're gonna quickly prep our parsley. We wanna chop it somewhere between a mince and a rough chop. So I'm guessing like an even chop. Is that a thing? Whatever you call it. Just get it ready to add that final pop of green at the end of the recipe. Let's bring together our spices. In a small bowl, we're mixing together garlic powder, dried thyme, smoked paprika, salt, and black pepper. Whisk that together. And I love pre-mixing my spices. This ensures that they hit the pan evenly and nobody gets just a mouthful of thyme. Push that off to the side and then bring in your blender. We're making our own cashew cream, adding your raw cashews and water. From here, you simply blend until it's completely smooth. A high-speed blender is highly recommended here. This is gonna add a rich layer of flavor to the sauce. But say you don't have cashews, or you may be allergic. You could use coconut milk or possibly even just a thicker plant-based milk, like a creamy oat milk. All right, grab your skillet. I like to use a cast iron. This way I don't have to transfer anything or wash more dishes. Add in some oil and we're gonna be searing the cabbage on both sides. You want the skillet on high heat before laying the cabbage down. You basically want to hear that sizzle immediately as it hits the pan. I forgot to hit record when I was adding the cabbage into the skillet, so I'm sorry about that. But as a quick note, you don't want too much oil in the pan. You also want to make sure your cabbage isn't wet either. You know, maybe because you just washed it. So I would pat it dry prior to moving it into the skillet. Otherwise, you'll have oil popping like fireworks. And that's scary. I also highly recommend using a spatula when flipping these. Well, unless you got hands like my mom. But for the rest of us mortals out there, you know, you use a utensil. After a few minutes, those should be seared on both sides and you can remove them off to a plate on the side. Then we're gonna lower the heat and give the skillet just a moment to breathe. This way, your butter doesn't burn when it hits the skillet. But when you're ready, add your plant butter to the pan. Let that melt, then follow it up with your shallots and your garlic. Simply stir that for about 2 minutes or so until it's fragrant. Up next, you're adding your spice blend and stirring that in the skillet for just a few seconds to let those oils bloom. Now, pour in your vegetable broth. Use your spatula to scrape the bottom of the pan to deglaze it. This is gonna help pull any little bits and flavors back into your sauce. Full transparency, I forgot I wanted to save some of my vegetable stock before adding it into the pan. This way I can add my miso into the stock and mix it together before adding that into the pan. So I ended up having to pour some back into the cup like a madman. Therefore, don't do that. Save yourself the trouble. Just simply set aside a quarter a cup of vegetable stock prior to, doing what I did. What's that saying? Do as I say, not as I do, Whisk the miso and the stock together until smooth. Then pour it back into the pan with your fresh cashew cream and your plant Parmesan cheese. Right behind that, we're gonna drizzle in a bit of that chili oil and stir this together until it thickens slightly. In this recipe, I'm actually breaking one of my rules I usually tell people not to do, which is boil your miso. And for this dish, I was more concerned with maximum flavor. Therefore, we're letting it simmer here. Once your sauce has thickened slightly, nestle those cabbage wedges into the sauce. Position them well, and then spoon the liquid gold right over top of each one. Here, you'll notice I only did 3 of my 4 wedges. I wanted to do some testing on the 4th wedge, so another recipe may be coming, if it works out well. With everything in place, move the skillet to an oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're gonna let that cook up for about 45 to 55 minutes. With your house being flooded with this amazing aroma, remove the dish from the oven and garnish with your even chopped parsley, ready to serve. Just deep umami flavor, rich creamy sauce, and fork tender seared cabbage. I mean, it's practically so tender that it just gives up when the fork touches it. Serve this one over, you know what? No, just a giant piece of crusty bread to soak up that miso garlic sauce. And that's it. This full recipe can be found linked in the description, or you can head right on over to my website, makeitdairyfree.com. As always, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. Until next time, believe in good. Peace.